Hello, everybody. This is Soda,
And I'm KLMeri.
and today we are reviewing the third season of Star Trek Lower Decks.
Yay!
Yay! uh, Lower Decks is kind of like our favorite show of the current batch of Star Trek shows, right?
So true.
Yeah. Um. So, overall, let's start this. Overall, we both enjoyed the third season. I think it's safe to say, right?
Yes, that's correct. It's continuing its good track record.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I feel like if I had to put this season between the other season, I would say it like I think the second season was slightly better, but it's still better than the first season.
I would agree. I think it's found its footing, especially with some of the characters. I mean, finally we're getting a little more about some of the other characters, which is great. And but I'm with you, Soda. I really, really enjoyed the second season. I think the second season was better than the first, but I would put the third one in second place.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we agree on the order there.
yeah. I think in this season, we'll talk more about it later. But I think in this season, they kind of dropped the ball on a certain character.
hmm Oh, I mean, well,
Yeah,
that's also true.
yeah.
But other characters,
But other characters definitely got a lot
yeah.
more screen time than last couple of seasons. So, do you want to talk about each episode specifically, and then kind of wrap it up with our overall thoughts?
I do. Yeah, so we'll kick it off with just a like brief discussion of what happened in each episode. There were 10 episodes as is usual for this show. Number 1.
Number one, the first episode called "Grounded." This episode basically takes place immediately after the second season finale. Um, we have in the second season finale, Captain Freeman was arrested for suspicion that she was colluding with the Packlets. Um, right? She was, or oh, that she was a terrorist against the Packlets, something like that, right? Something about the
Correct. The
Packlets.
Packlets had their capital had been bombed, and they
Yeah,
accused her of being responsible for that. So a terrorist act committed by Captain Freeman.
and if I don't remember this precisely, it's because this episode pretty much wraps this plot line completely.
Yes, normally we have side stories going on, but really this first episode was entirely to close the gap or like you said, button up the what happens since Captain Freeman was arrested.
Yeah, we get to see a bit of Earth. We get to see Mariner with her father, which we don't see. I don't think we ever saw them interact. Um, Mariner is very upset about her mother being
Mhm.
suspected for something that she obviously didn't do, and we see Tandy and Rutherford enjoying Cisco's father's restaurant in New Orleans, and we see Boimler working on his raisin farm, his family's raisin farm. Yeah,
Oh goodness.
so we get both a Deep Space Nine and the Next Generation references because, of course, Boimler's raisin farm is like a reference to Picard's
Yes.
wine farm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Apparently Boimler's very popular.
yeah.
It is.
Among all of the raisin workers. And of course, because of that, we then get the search for Spock reference as Mariner basically convinces her friends to go along with her to find the records of Boimler that Boimler keeps that can prove Captain Freeman's innocence.
Correct. And really, the running theme here is Mariner's father had told her to trust in the system.
Yeah,
We're not immediately going crazy over the fact that your mother's been arrested and is on trial because we need you to trust the system, trust in Starfleet. And we all know Mariner has a problem doing that. Um,
Yeah.
so she can't stand it, not being able to do something and not believing others can do better than she can. So she does a crazy little, like you said, search for Spock kind of move.
Yeah.
They essentially steal what is like a kiddie ride.
That is also a reference to First Contact, the movie Star Trek First Contact. A lot of references in this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically use it to get off Earth to try to steal the Cerritos, which is in dock in orbit.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just keep running into problems, and they get caught, of course. But
Of
who else did
course.
they get caught by? By her freed mother. So Captain
Yeah.
Freeman has been acquitted of all the charges, and yeah, they're just like, "What were you doing? Trying to
Yeah.
steal a starship?" It's a
Yeah.
shame. They could have been like the original crew, Search for Spock.
Yeah.
They were a little clumsy at it, though.
Yeah. I mean, there are just four people, and they're all like ensigns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, Starfleet was conducting its own secret investigation while the trial was going on, and they were able to conclude that the Packlet bombing was, in fact, done by the Packlets themselves in an attempt to get, I guess, the Federation to move them to a new, better world with more resources. Yeah. We also get to see a Voyager reference. We get Tuvok doing some weird like interrogative mind melding with the secret agents
Yeah.
or
A
spies.
lot. A lot of references in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think a lot of people were kind of disappointed by this episode because it wrapped everything up so neatly. Um, but I think it's kind of a fresh take, if I'm being honest, because yeah, most of the times, stories that are like trust the system. The systems on our modern day Earth are faulty. Let's say
Yeah.
a lot of times you can't really trust the system. But this is the utopic Star Trek future where the systems are supposed to be just. And sometimes we see them fail, but most of the times they are just. So I think it kind of kicks off one of Mariner's storyline in the season, which
Correct.
is basically this you have to choose to be in Starfleet and follow Starfleet's rules, basically. You can't just kind of be in Starfleet. You can't just kind of, half-ass be in Starfleet. Just shall we say?
You also have to believe in what they do. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah. In a sense, she believes in Starfleet's ideals or their ideas, but she's not. She doesn't like the bureaucracy of it,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to trust in that as well.
Yeah. Exactly. Um, because up until now, we know Mariner has a lot of experience, and technically she could have been much more than an ensign, but she kind of chooses to be an ensign because she enjoys being this sort of rebel, this sort of, oh, I don't trust the system, I don't really want to be here, but I'm still here kind of person.
Correct.
Um,
And this is how, at the end of the episode, Captain Freeman recognizes that she's just not the right type of authority figure to bring her daughter in line. She has tried. Mariner's father has tried. Given that the Cerritos is still her last chance, Captain
yeah,
Freeman decides to basically put her, let's say, put her under ransom,
put her on probation,
on
actually.
probation, with ransom being
Yeah.
the
Well,
person
Ransom is, yeah,
who babysits her.
babysits her, yeah. I think she's kind of like, listen, you can't half-ass this anymore. If you want to remain in Starfleet, you're going to have to prove you want to be in Starfleet, which means you can't just go around being the rebel anymore.
Hmm.
So either you prove that you want to be in Starfleet, or you won't be there. You won't be here anymore. We will let you go. And that's basically that kickstarts Mariner, one of Mariner's storylines this season. That she has the biggest one, really. That she has to prove that she wants to be in Starfleet. She has to decide she wants to be in Starfleet.
Yeah. So shall we move on to number two?
Yeah, basically.
So number two, the least dangerous game. We kind of start off with Boimler realizing that he needs to be what is called bold
Bold
Boimler
Boimler. Yeah,
because his playing it safe is really holding him back
yeah,
from moving up in rank and not giving his many opportunities. So this is an episode where we back into these sort of divergent storylines with different cast members. So while we have Boimler, who is on the ship and is essentially decides to do something crazy and agree to be hunted by an alien.
he basically decides to say yes to everything, right?
Yes, he's going to say yes to everything. That includes being the prey of a hunter species called like the Chromo sapiens or something like that.
I just remember the guy's called Crunch or something.
Cratch.
Crunch.
Cratch.
Yeah.
So while that is going on, the other three, Mariner, Rutherford, really Mariner and Rutherford are kind of on this mission. They're split up, so what they're doing is I think they've like decided to swap roles.
Yeah. Well, Ransom decided they should swap roles.
Ransom decided they should swap roles. So Ransom and Mariner, because of course he's watching over her, are doing what engineers normally do.
Yeah.
While the engineers, being the chief engineer and Rutherford, are down on this planet, kind of conducting like negotiations.
Yeah. Basically, Ransom and Mariner are fixing this planetary lift that is very, very big and is kind of. It's just a very big lift, basically.
I barely even remember what these aliens were called, like the
Yeah.
Dulanians or something.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Waterford and Billups are like the diplomats who make contact with the aliens whose lift they're fixing. Um, and Mariner, and the thing is, Mariner thinks this is stupid. Why give the engineers who like to be engineers the diplomatic mission while they do the engineering mission? It is stupid.
It is stupid, and she thinks Ransom is doing it just to essentially punish her.
Yeah.
And she's not really far off.
Yeah.
So
I think not just to punish her, but kind of to test her.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because he knows she's like one misstep away from being thrown out of Starfleet, so he's trying to kind of goad her to see if she will misstep.
Exactly. Put her into a position where she's doing something she thinks is stupid, and she really is like, well, we should be down on that planet conducting, talking with those natives and doing all the things that we normally do. And would she essentially try to go off on her own and rebel again, which is what she's good at?
Yeah.
It's your classic like switch jobs type of trope.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're in a job that you don't know very well or may not be very good at, everything goes wrong.
Yeah. And, to Ransom's credit, he is absolutely right. Mariner does try to ditch him and go do the diplomatic thing. The first hint she gets that Rutherford and Williams are in trouble. But at the last minute, she does manage to like hold herself. I mean, not hold herself back exactly, but
turn around.
Turn around.
She literally turns around in the middle of
jumping down from the lift. Yeah.
And so they, in time, decide to go down to the planet to rescue the engineers because, of course, they have offended the natives, unknowingly, unintentionally offended them multiple times to the point that they're about to be like thrown into a volcano or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's just very lucky that Ransom didn't really notice that she was about to ditch him. Yeah, but she ends up regretting it. She kind of understands. I think she kind of understands in this episode that she is kind of the reason he is doing that, because she's so antagonistic and basically so predictable in her, need to rebel.
In a nutshell, that is the least dangerous game. And to make a comment about Boimler, okay, this bold Boimler, this Boimler who says yes to everything and it doesn't play it safe, is going to reoccur a few times
Yeah.
in this season. It's strange.
This is Boimler's story. I'm not even calling this season because I have a feeling it will return next season.
Yeah.
Usually when a character is like very timid and he goes like 180 degrees and becomes like super bold, you kind of get, the lesson that, you should find a middle ground. Being like this guy who says yes to everything is not really a good thing. But this season, it's like, no, both Boimler is great. Both Boimler, he says yes to everything and everything works out. So I think we are waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, something is going to happen.
Yeah.
Not this season, though.
So from the first episode, we have Mariner, like you said, sort of, you've got to give up being the rebel and commit to Starfleet. And we have Boimler's, you need to be stop playing it safe. And yeah. In the third episode. So minding, let me see if I can say this is a tongue twister. Minding the mind's minds.
Yeah. Mining the mind's minds, yeah.
Yep. Mining the mind's minds.
Yeah. Basically, Rutherford, Boimler, and Mariner are sent to a planet to clear up psychic minds, which are like minds that make you see things that you fear or that you want, right?
They will see things that you fear, but then they will also, like, violently take you apart.
Yeah, well, things that you fear, but also things that you really want. Basically, they're there to distract you, either to scare you or to tempt you away with things that you really want. And they're doing this with another ship, the Carlston or something like that.
Carlsbad.
And basically, the ensigns on that ship seem very hostile to the Cerritos ensigns, and it becomes sort of a competition that also involves, psychic minds. So things go badly.
for one officer in particular.
Yeah.
Poor Stevens.
Yeah.
So on the ship, Tendi is now, in her new science officer position, and she's essentially kind of on her first day of training. She's been given this advice to like get the captain's attention, which she tries and fails to do up until the end of the episode, but mostly because the Captain Freeman and the captain of the other ship, Mayer, I think, are fighting.
Yeah.
When during what should be some just diplomatic, conversation with the native of the planet, the Scrubble, and the outpost scientist who are there.
I think this is I don't think this is setting up Tendi's story. I think it's a continuation.
Yeah.
I think since basically, I don't think in the first season, basically since the second season, we kind of see that Tendi herself needs to learn to embrace her less timid side. She's very. We see it in another episode later on in this season, but in her attempt, she really doesn't like her heritage, or Orion heritage, or Orion pirate heritage, and she's kind of trying to be the complete opposite of that, be very sweet and very nice and very quiet, but it's not who she is.
Correct.
And she kind of needs to embrace that. And this entire episode, I think she was told to, like, she needs to advocate for science or something like that, right?
Right.
And she's trying to do it very gently, very quietly, but because of the nature of the issue, because it's a heated negotiation with a different species, her voice gets drowned out, and she needs to be more assertive to get heard.
Hmm. And so this all culminates in those psychic mines or little landmines that they're trying to dispose of going, well, they mess it up pretty badly. So they have a bunch of rampant nightmares and tempting visions running
Yeah,
amok and really chasing them around the planet. And so the ensigns from the Carlsbad and from the Cerritos end up holed up together in this cave. They eventually figure out that they should not have been competing because they misunderstood each other. So the Cerritos ensigns are kind of famous among the Cali class.
yeah, and they're famous, for a good thing. They're not infamous; they're actually famous.
In such a
Um,
way that they make the other ensigns on the other ships feel like they need to step up.
yeah, they're intimidated basically.
Yeah,
The other ensigns were intimidated by them because they have such a cool reputation.
yeah. So they basically, work out their differences and miscommunication, and they figure out that these visions are uh, part of a spy device,
Yeah,
actually. So the Scrubble and the Outpost scientists are actually working together. Um, it's this sort of technology that reads your minds and then tries to store all the data in Federation devices, and essentially it's just spy tech.
yeah, and Tandy, of course, figures out herself that the gift that the diplomats are trying to give Captain Freeman
Which looks
is
like a rock.
also, which looks like a rock, is also spyware, and she, of course, has to assert herself and yell at everyone in the room to get their attention to tell them that.
Correct. The Scrubble and the Outpost scientists are outed as trying to trick
Yeah,
the Federation, and that is that.
yeah. Actually, one more thing about this: it's the first episode of the season that touches on a second story for Mariner that was set up in last season, which is her new relationship with Jan, the Andorian.
Correct.
Yeah. So in this episode, we don't actually see Jan. We didn't see her in the last two episodes. We don't see her really there. We only see visions of her from Mariner's from Mariner touching the psychic minds, basically. At first, we see her, trying to tempt Mariner with sex,
Yes.
basically. But then she, of course, when the minds don't succeed with that, they try to go the fur route. And we see Mariner is very afraid of commitment to Jan.
Yeah, that was my one takeaway from this was she's now in a relationship with her crewmate, and she has this fear of commitment.
We see Jan goes into this like werewolf monster thing, and
Big
like,
blue werewolf.
yeah, big blue werewolf, and demanding that they move in together and all of those stuff. And yeah,
It's very entertaining.
it is. And I guess it also kind of, it makes sense if Mariner is just afraid of commitment in general. That's why she doesn't want to commit to Starfleet. But it makes sense that she'll also have this problem in her romantic life.
Yeah. Number 4, Soda.
Yeah, room for growth. In this episode, the engineering team, along with Captain Freeman, go to a spa. Meanwhile, on the ship, there is this, how do you call it?
Oh, a raffle?
Raffle.
Like a lottery, basically.
Yeah, basically a raffle to get room on the officer's deck that was recently freed up, and ensigns can get it if they enter the raffle. But the chances of ensigns getting it are very, very low. So Boimler, Mariner, and Tandy plan on sneaking to the computer to the to the main computer and entering their names to get better chances of winning it.
They
The only
do.
problem is,
They
yeah,
learn that Beta Shift is going to do that. And
uh,
as you know, Beta
yeah,
Shift is their enemy.
yeah.
So they decide to do it first.
They decide to do it first. Basically, it's basically a race between them and the beta shifters to get to the computer to enter their names.
Correct. And on this adventure of them sneaking through some of the bowels of the ship, including the holodeck, we get a, a very interesting scene with Shax and Dr. Tiana, so we can know that
Yeah,
their relationship is going very well.
yeah,
Um, they use the holodeck for their
yeah,
role playing for
yeah.
sexual purposes. Yeah,
And honestly, it's kind of a nice journey in the bowels of the ship. We
yeah.
get to see all kinds of things from angles we never saw before. Um, we see the inside of a deflector dish. Bold Boimler makes another appearance. Um, and yeah, basically they're all through this race. The ensigns we follow kind of decide they don't want the room after all because they don't want to be separated. Of course, after they decide that, they kind of discover that the room was big enough for four people and they could have just shared the room.
Yeah. I think I said beta earlier, but I meant to say delta shift is their enemy because they're beta shift.
Their beta shift, yeah.
Yeah, so they essentially decide to give up on the room and give it to delta shift, and then, yeah, they realized they
Yeah,
could have shared it.
yeah. Meanwhile, the spa plot is kind of funny. The engineering team, the spa is kind of, a spa. It has like massages and saunas and stuff, and puppy room, whatever.
It has a very unique methods of relaxation.
Yeah, but all the engineers want to do is do more engineering. They find engineering relaxing. And Captain Freeman just becomes more and more angry at the engineers because they refuse to do other relaxation activities, and they just keep on engineering until she basically becomes the most high strung person in the spa.
Yes, it's very humorous.
Yeah,
This episode was, I think, all around just one of the funnier ones.
yeah, yeah. There was also, I think, another one of my favorite scenes was when they went to do this. The one with the gases that only like only Tandy could breathe them, and they gave um, Mariner and Boimler hallucinations.
Yes, they were basically on a trip.
Yeah,
On a hallucination trip, the two of them. By the way, some of those parts of the ship that we, quote, never see were very strange to me,
yeah,
but also
yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
I'm like, are we sure this is in the middle of the ship?
All right, next episode,
Oh,
reflections.
yeah.
Oh, this one is a big one. It's a big one because we finally get to learn Rutherford's backstory.
Finally.
Yeah, basically Rutherford kind of wakes up and one day his implant malfunctions and this other entity kind of takes over his body, and first he thinks it's kind of a malicious alien or something like that, but then it turns out it's not. It's actually his original personality
It,
before he got the implants.
yeah. So his original personality when he was a first year cadet
Yeah,
and a very, very angry one.
he was angry, he was brash, he was rude. He was just an unpleasant person. He was still a very brilliant engineer. Basically, old Rutherford is kind of annoyed at who he became now.
Oh yeah, it's a complete personality change. There really
Yeah,
are like two different people. Original Rutherford, you got the sense he was kind of like a mariner, like a rebel. Like he didn't care about Starfleet whatever. He was doing his own like engineering projects in secret because all he really wanted to do was race
yeah,
spaceships. he just he struck me as the rebel.
yeah. I don't know if he's kind of the rebel, but yeah, he's kind of like a mirror picture of Mariner.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, also, I think he was kind of like, what if Tom Paris from Voyager was like better written as a character? Like what he was intended to be originally.
Well, either way, he's definitely not the Rutherford of today. And
Yeah,
when Rutherford finally realizes who he is, they have a fight over who's going to retain possession of his brain and his body, and the other one will essentially be deleted.
yeah,
So it is a battle for existence between the Rutherfords,
yeah.
which culminates in a space race.
And Rutherford, our Rutherford, the current Rutherford, kind of wins with the power of friendship,
Yes.
which I think is a clever thing because people can change,
Mm-hmm.
and even if the reason Rutherford changed so much is because of the implant, old Rutherford kind of sees that his life is better now. People actually like him, which didn't happen before.
He's not an angry like loner who, yeah,
Yeah,
sets people probably doesn't set people or sets people on edge, and yeah, it doesn't have any friends.
yeah. Um, but before he disappears for it, and Rutherford, our Rutherford is kind of sad of letting him go. He's like, maybe we can do it. We can be there together. And old Rutherford is like, no, this is your life now. You don't need me, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Which is true. Rutherford never needed him. But before he goes, he kind of reveals to our Rutherford what happened in his past. In the last episode of season 2, Rutherford kind of has a flashback to when he got his implant, and we see a shadowy figure kind of erases him on purpose, and old Rutherford shows him that it's true. Someone did erase his memories on purpose, and basically to steal his designs for something. We don't know who, and we don't know why.
Right, Rutherford's like experimental engine or whatever he was working on in secret blew up and injured him, and during the surgery he got the implant, but it was done by some very shady people.
Yeah,
And of course, I think this has been alluded to before, right? Rutherford has had memory loss. He's had
yeah,
like blackout periods where it feels like something shady was going on during those blackout periods, and we I think we've been waiting for this storyline to come up in more
yeah,
detail. So I was very happy to see it in this episode. I was like, yes, a Rutherford episode. We finally get story and to talk more about the mystery of his implant.
yeah. And I think it was very interesting to see old Rutherford because you didn't expect it, right?
Right. Yes. I mean, it was very surprising to see that no, he was not always the way he is. Completely changed.
Yeah, our Rutherford is very happy-go-lucky. He's very cheerful. He's very friendly. His old self was kind of the exact opposite of that.
While that's going on, you alluded to the fact that like Boimler and Mariner are off on their own assignments. They're basically running in like a recruitment booth at a
Yes.
fair for to recruit people to Starfleet, and it is not going so good. In fact, they're kind of the laughing stock of all the other recruitment booths.
Yeah. Yeah, we see them basically be the nerds. And it is getting under Mariner's skin very much, but Ransom told her that she is not allowed to leave the booth for any reason, basically. So she and Boimer kind of have to sit there and take it, as it were. Meanwhile, on the booth next to them is an archaeologist called Aberdeen, who's like she reminds me of the character of Vash from The Next Generation.
Yeah.
This archaeologist, kind of con woman that Picard has a relationship with.
Yep.
Yeah, she's basically this type of character. And she kind of basically she and Mariner talk a lot, and she pokes holes in Starfleet through and through. And I think part of the reason her role in the episode is for Mariner to kind of defend Starfleet.
Yeah.
Like, she talks with her, but she is everything that Aberdeen says, Mariner kind of negates, because I think that's part of the journey Mariner goes through to,
Mm-hmm.
decide she wants to be in Starfleet.
And, the interesting thing here is it's not like an outsider is mocking Starfleet. This person, Aberdeen, is a former Starfleet officer.
Yeah,
So she knows what she's talking about in a sense. It's all the more important, I think, that Mariner's um, having this conversation with her as opposed to just all the other people who are mocking the Starfleet recruitment booth, who actually make Boimler so mad that he goes crazy.
yeah. He is the one who ends up breaking the booth and going outside to confront
Ballistic.
people. Yeah,
And scaring everybody and getting in trouble with ransom.
yeah. But eventually, it turns out that the way he defended Starfleet actually makes them recruit more people. People thought it was cool, which I guess is another point for Bold Boimler, even though he isn't mentioned here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, to be honest, you're reminded of, through hearing them defend Starfleet, you're reminded of all the things that you like about Star Trek
Yeah,
and the things that Starfleet does. And then we're left at the end of the episode with Aberdeen telling Mariner on the sly, if you ever get tired of Starfleet, call me.
yeah. That's it. Well, yeah. All right. The next episode is one that made me very happy personally. Here, all trust nothing. We finally get a Deep Space Nine reference. All the new shows reference, new shows and new movie reference very heavily the original series and the Next Generation, and even Voyager, Prodigy references Voyager quite a lot. And finally, we finally get a Deep Space Nine reference.
Woohoo!
Um,
And the
yeah,
great thing about this is, I mentioned, like, say, Tuvok showing up in the first episode, like, harkening back to his character in Voyager.
yeah,
This is an episode where you don't just get, like, to see them in a snippet of a cameo. You actually get them, and you get Deep Space Nine characters involved in the episode, and so it's really great.
yeah. Basically, the Cerritos goes to Deep Space Nine for a
Mm-hmm.
mission, for a diplomatic mission with the Karama, which is a species from Deep Space Nine. And we get to see Nana Visitor and Armin Shimmerman reprising the roles of Quark and Kira. Kira is still the station's manager, as she was at the end of Deep Space Nine, and Quark still runs his bar.
Oh, he's got a whole enterprise now.
Yeah,
He's got bars all over the Alpha Quadrant.
yeah, he became a franchise.
Yes, basically.
Yeah, yeah, but he's still the same old Quark.
Oh yeah.
Some things never change. And we have a very funny, connection between Kira and Shax. Shax is, of course, the Bajoran security officer of the Cerritos, who was also in the Bajoran resistance, and apparently knows Kira from way back in the day. And they saved each other's lives countless of times, and the entire episode they argue who owes who what.
Which was also awesome.
Yeah. Um, Meanwhile, of course, Quark is cheating the camera out of something, and Captain Freeman has to deal with that. But while this is going on, we get a B story of Tandy and Rutherford basically meeting another Orion in Starfleet.
Which surprised me, but also I was like, okay, I'll roll with it. More Orion stuff.
Yeah, and this is a really big episode about Tandy's Orion heritage. The Orion in Starfleet that they happen upon is very, very Orion. He's like the Worf of Orions in Starfleet. He enters. He basically shoves Orion culture, Orion pirate culture into everything they do.
He's like, so tell me, when did you steal your first ship? Like,
Yeah,
he just goes on, and Tendi keeps trying to shut him down. She's like, we don't all think that way. That's not all we
yeah,
are. He even asked, like, hey, how did your parents feel about you joining Starfleet? I mean, he really starts he annoys her at first, but she gets pretty angry by the end.
Yeah. Tandy has a lot of issues with her Orion heritage, and um, yeah, this guy basically keeps pushing her on this. And eventually, it turns out that this guy isn't has never been in Orion Parish. He barely knows anything about Orion culture. All he was actually adopted by humans as a baby.
And lived in
And
Ohio.
yeah,
Based his whole entire Orion persona off of what he's read or seen on like TV.
yeah, basically, he basically admits that everything he learned was from fictionalized books, horror novels and stuff. Um, and and Tandy, on the other hand, turns out was an actual pirate, a daughter of a pirate Orion pirate family, and she actually does know Orion pirate tricks, and she uses them to help basically stop the karma from kidnapping Quark.
Yeah. Which is very hilarious. There's just so many good things in this episode.
Yeah, we do learn a lot of things about Orion culture, even through the distorted lens of the Orion.
Mm-hmm.
They're not they're not quite Orion guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
The one thing that took a backstory in this episode was Mariner's little plot, which was
yeah,
she was going to spend the time with her girlfriend Jennifer, and Jennifer's friends from the academy, from Academy Day. So they were having essentially a sleepover, like a girl's sleepover, if you will.
yeah.
And Mariner's on her best behavior. She, of course, doesn't want to um, embarrass Jennifer, and she doesn't want Jennifer, to make. She wants to be accepted
She
by
doesn't.
Jennifer's friends. She thinks that's
Yeah,
important to Jennifer, therefore she wants to be on her best behavior, and she
yeah,
can only take so much.
yeah.
Which I think anybody in that situation could only take so much. Even I was cringing for Mariner.
Yeah, Jennifer's friends are very weird and pretentious and annoying. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
when
I can.
the station is kind of shut down, and all the people panic and think they're running out of air because they lit candles that suck up too much oxygen, they get to stun everybody, and it's beautiful. Mariner and Jennifer have a nice moment where they, talk about how they like each other for who they are, and yeah, that's it.
Kind of. I guess now we're looking back at it. At first, it seemed like Jennifer basically tells Mariner that she likes that Mariner is a rebel, and she kind of brought her along
Yeah.
because she wanted Mariner to be kind of a bitch to her friends. Um, but at the time, it seemed like she was saying, "Oh, I like you for who you are." But looking back at it after the end of the season,
Right.
it also can kind of be seen as Jennifer just kind of liking this part of Mariner and no other part.
Right. If you read into it, yeah. But
Yeah,
at the time, it seems like
at the time it
girlfriends
seemed sweet.
girlfriends realizing they like each other for certain who they are, basically. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a very much a back story, like
it
a
is the
side
it's
story.
the C plot. It's the C
It's
plot.
the C
If
plot.
yeah,
The other two plots are A plots, if you ask me.
the A and B plots, and this is the C plot.
I think they're both A's. I think they're both A's, and then Mariners is a C.
Maybe. Um, Now, the next episode is a very special episode. It's kind of a controversial episode, is from what I gathered. A mathematically perfect redemption.
Oh god. Listen, all I wrote for this episode was one word. Actually, maybe two, I guess, if it's supposed to be peanut hamper.
Yeah,
Peanut
that's
hamper
also what
returns.
that's what I wrote. Peanut hamper episode. Yeah, so Peanut Hamper, for those who do not remember, was a character that appeared in the last episode of the first season of Lower Decks. Basically, when she was a new ensign, an exocomp, basically a living machine,
Mm-hmm.
and um, when the ship needed her most, she kind of bailed on them because she didn't feel like sacrificing herself for the greater good. She was like, "I don't need this. I just joined Starfleet to annoy my parents. Bye." And well, after she escapes, she runs away, basically deserts the Cerritos. Of course, the Cerritos, because she expected the Cerritos to blow up, the Cerritos doesn't blow up, and they save the day, and they go away, and they kind of forget about her. So she drifts off in space for a while until she manages to scrounge up a ship, and she rides this ship until she lands at some unknown planet and wakes up among primitive bird people. Yeah. Those people do not have any technology, or at first, so it seems. And Peanut Hamper is basically stuck on their planet.
And while I guess she should be adapting, she's mostly just criticizing everything they do,
Yep, yep.
as she does, because
She's
she's Peanut Hamper.
yeah. She's a narcissist. She's just a narcissist, and everything who isn't technologically advanced to her standards, which are impossible to reach, basically. She just hates, and she criticizes everything and everyone. She calls them all backwards. She hates being there. She really hates being there.
And yet
Um,
somehow there is a love plot.
Well, yeah, over time, it seems like she kind of gets used to them and
Yeah.
their ways. Slowly, she gains respect. It's a very standard redemption plot,
Yes.
which should have,
Been a
ruined
flag,
the
a
hell
red
out of it.
flag.
That's a red flag, yeah. It's a standard redemption plot. Slowly, she learns to respect their ways, and she grows to like some of them, falls in love with the son of the chief of the village or whatever it was, the prince or whatever. I don't remember his exact title. And then she finds out that the people, the Aurora or something like that, they weren't always so primitive. They
Yep.
used to actually have very advanced technology, including starships, but they abandoned them because it was destroying their planet. Um, they attracted wars and other kinds of bad things, so they abandoned all of their technology and just remained on their planet without technology.
Yeah. And
Um,
this is, of course, the turn in the plot where the Drukmani,
yeah,
who were chasing Peanut Hamper when she was, kind of floating through space. They collect junk, space junk, as you know.
yeah, they collect space junk. Yeah,
They followed her to the planet, and or what it seems they followed her to the planet, and they have now realized there's a bunch of great quote space junk under the planet, like buried down in the planet, which are the
yeah,
spaceships, that the ancestors of this race used to have, and so they essentially start trying to tractor beam all of that up and tearing up, all
the
the
village.
the village and essentially where everybody lives and the ecosystem. It's yeah.
Yeah, and so Peanut Hamper, to protect her new village, her new people, she contacts the Cerritos, Starfleet, but the Cerritos basically, and calls them to come and help uh, the bird people against the Drukmani. And then, of course, they come. The Cerritos comes. There is they're of course willing to help, but after they talk with the Drukmani, it turns out it was Peanut Hamper who called the Drukmani and told them about the ships under the planet.
she thought it
Because,
she thought it was the only way to get off the planet.
yeah, she was actually going to pretend to save, to call the Drukmani and pretend to save the people from the Drukmani. So she would appear redeemed in the eyes of Starfleet and be accepted back. But of course, for her trouble, she gets locked up as a crazy computer among all the other crazy computers.
Including the one from a prior season. The one
From
who
yeah,
kept trying to talk like Boimler and Mariner into fighting so it could take over.
yeah, basically the one
Like
the
the
one
like the Landrew computer or something, whatever it
yeah,
was.
the one dubbed by Jeffrey Combs. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
They get put next to each other. They're neighbors.
it, yeah, and it's implied they're going to work together, which is
Yeah.
this is worrying. I think we should all be worried. Um, I really like this episode. A lot of people didn't. I really, really liked it. I thought it was so funny.
I liked it. I don't know if the season warranted a full episode of Peanut Hamper, but at the same time, it was very entertaining. It was so cliche, it was hilarious.
Yeah, it was cliche, but then you had Peanut Hampers running commentary the entire
Oh,
time.
she did. She was very funny, but I'm like, like you said, the cliche like redemption arc. But then, of course, the trick is that she was actually being manipulative anyway. She was going to betray them anyway, like she does, because that's who she
Yeah,
is. Um,
yeah,
oh man, all the awful things she said to that poor Birdman, her like bird,
yeah.
who fell in love
She
with
broke.
her.
Yeah, so
You
sad.
were just a fling.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
They're supposed to get
Oh,
married. I mean, like, come on. Anyway.
yeah. I actually think it wanted an episode because I think it's setting up a future plot. I mean, those two, she and the other computer working together. I think it will be a plot line in next season or maybe a season after it.
I mean, very possible, but well, we'll come back to that. We'll come back.
All right.
So let's talk
Yeah.
about the next episode, which is number 8, Crisis Point 2, Paradoxus.
Yeah.
So this is essentially a sequel to Mariner's original movie, Crisis Point,
Yeah.
from a prior season, except this is Boimler's sequel to Mariner's
Yeah.
movie, written by Boimler himself, who stars in the
Yeah.
movie with all his friends. Yeah, it's just exactly what Mariner says it is at the end. She goes, "It's just a Starfleet movie," which we love.
We love. Yeah. I mean, originally, Bumble wanted to be a movie, an action movie with a lot of plot, plot turns and action. But then Boimler gets very upsetting news, and he goes off script to try and find the meaning of life on the holodeck. Yeah,
And it turns out that Mariner, who realizes he's had this unsettling news, ends up following him in his off script adventure, while the main adventure of the movie is taken on by Tendi and Rutherford. Well, actually, Rutherford's just there to enjoy himself.
yeah.
And
Tandy takes it very seriously.
very seriously, to the point that she takes over and leads the movie, or
Yeah,
leads the main plot of the movie into, defeating the bad guys.
and she's very upset that Rutherford is just there to have a good time and isn't taking it as seriously as she does. Yeah, eventually, basically, at first, Mariner kind of gives Boimler a very hard time for going off script and just doing whatever because it's very obvious that the holodeck is kind of trying to recalibrate to fit whatever Boimler is doing, react to Boimler's actions, and they become more and more ludicrous. Yeah,
Well, at the very beginning, Mariner is kind of scoffing at Boimler for even making a sequel to her great movie.
yeah. And then she realizes that the upsetting news Boimler got was that his clone,
William.
William, has died.
It just a freak accident.
Yeah, and it makes Boimler question his morality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Meanwhile, it turns out Tandy is taking this movie so seriously because she had been considering and eventually comes to the realization that she wants to go for command. She wants to be a captain. Um, and of course, once Mariner and Rutherford understand this about their respective partners, they become very supportive. You know, it's kind of a standard episode. I'm going to say.
It's a very standard episode, but with just lots of meta about Star Trek movies in general,
Yeah,
which makes it
yeah,
so much more entertaining, I think. Watching Boimler go kind of crazy is, to be honest, we've seen him go crazy before now a few times, so it's kind of typical.
yeah.
Um, And we enjoy watching, or I enjoyed watching Tindy take over and sort of take the command role and lead everybody to defeat the bad guys. But I also just really enjoy them kind of making fun of some of the bad Star Trek movies that are out there.
Yeah.
So, if you would call like Mariner's original movie, which she starred in to essentially as therapy, for dealing with her mom,
Yeah.
this is sort of Boimler and Tindy's therapy for coming to their own realizations about certain things.
Yeah. Exactly.
In a sense, I am glad they kind of brought back the holodeck movie trope, because that was, I don't know, I just enjoyed it. I don't know if they can do it a third time, but a second time was okay to me.
Yeah, it was fine. I really don't know if they can do. I mean, I guess we can find out. We'll talk about this later, because in the last episode, there is a scene about a certain holodeck character that comes back.
Yeah. Oh, I did. I did want to say, we did miss that one. Boimler, when he essentially ends up on his crazy, like, off-script quest, and he tries to take apart the the holodecks, like, godlike thing, he
Yeah.
ends up, kind of passing out and having this heart-to-heart with Sulu
Yeah.
on a ranch that Sulu bought from Kirk.
Yeah.
And Sulu kind of, talks him through the meaning of life. And then Boimler wakes up in Med Bay and chalks it down to like a hallucination. And then we have a very final scene in this episode in which William, the clone, is revived by a shady Starfleet character. Turns out to be Section 31. So his death was faked. So
Yeah.
he could
Join Section 31.
go join Section 31. So William the clone is not gone. Dun
He's
dun
not.
dun.
I mean, I was kind of surprised when they say he died, because I
Oh, yeah.
was sure he's going to be part of a bigger story, and then at the end it made sense.
Yeah.
And this leads us to the two-parter, sort of a two-parter finale, season finale. The first part is called Trusted Sources. Basically, the Cerritos is Starfleet Command is finally taking Captain Freeman's advice and request and setting up a new program called Project Swing By, which is when California-class ships get to swing by planets that other ships visited before, to see how things progress with them.
And this is not the first time they've mentioned like some civilizations get a visit from Starfleet and then are never talked to again, or like they never check in with them. So this Project Swing By is like you said, to check in on those civilizations that have been visited
and influenced by Starfleet.
however far you want to take it.
Yeah. And at the same time, the Cerritos is also visited by a journalist who wants to write a report about them. So,
and we're also introduced that this is an approved project by an Admiral Buenamigo.
Buenamigo, yes.
Buenamigo.
Admiral Buenamigo. Well, he's literally called the Admiral Good Friend.
I know.
So I guess he's a good guy. Yeah. So basically, so Captain Freeman is very, very anxious that everyone has to be on their best behavior, because they have a new project that she wants to get to have to be permanent, and she also has this reporter going around writing about her ship. So her number one priority is basically to keep Mariner away from the reporter, because Mariner is, of course, the troublemaker. So, on Project Swing By, they visit a planet from one of the episodes I hate the most in The Next Generation. Because I think it kind of exemplifies everything that is terrible about The Next Generation.
The drug use people.
The drug and the drug addict, the drug dealers and the drug addicted planets.
Yes.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, the episode is Symbiosis. I think it's from either the first or second season of The Next Generation. In it, um, the Starfleet runs into two planets who have warp capability. They are able to travel between these planets. Basically, one planet produces a drug and kind of got the whole other planet hooked on it.
Yeah.
And Starfleet realizes that, but they also, for some reason, choose not to intervene because of the Prime Directive, and it's so stupid. Eventually, they end up cutting the supply line, even though they know that the withdrawal from the drug, the planet-wide withdrawal from the drug, would be very violent and painful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that is even mentioned when the first visit is to the planet of the former drug addicts.
yeah, the
And they're like,
Ornara,
"Oh
yeah,
yeah, we had a sort of an unsettling period after you left, in which everybody, of
yeah,
course, is losing their minds, and then, of
yeah,
course, they got addicted to exercise."
yeah. Um, they don't seem very keen on Starfleet, and I can understand why because
Yeah.
Starfleet kind of made this happen. So of course, so this visit is very anticlimactic. They're like, "So do you need any help?" And they're like, "Nope, you can go."
More like, please, you can like leave now.
Yeah, please leave now and don't come back. Yeah. Um, and of course, Captain Freeman is very upset about this because it makes it seem like Project Swing By is kind of useless. Meanwhile, on the ship, Mariner kind of wants to talk to the reporter. She has a lot of things to say. And eventually she does get to talk to the reporter, and we don't see what she says. But later, the Cerritos visits the other planet. The first one was the Ornara, the second one was the Brekka.
Yeah.
Turns out that the planet of the Brekka was taken over by the Breen.
Yeah. It's like a war zone, basically.
It is basically a war zone, and they almost killed every person who lived there. So it seems like there is a point to Project Swing Y, but then the reporter publishes her report, and it's very, very bad. It's extremely bad. And everybody blames Mariner for talking to the reporter.
Yeah, everybody blames Mariner. Captain Freeman is so upset with Mariner that she has her transferred to Starbase 80, which is essentially the place you go for your career to die.
Yeah,
Mariner basically tries to defend herself, and she didn't say anything upsetting to the reporter. She wasn't trying to sabotage anything.
yeah, but no one believes her except for kind of her friends, but
Even
even they don't
yeah.
even they don't really stick up for her.
At the end of this, it is air the reporters, let's say, interviews are aired, and it turns out that the people who told her things that made the Cerritos look so bad was all the other crew members who gave just like carelessly said things about adventures they've had and things they've done that, if you put them together, paints a really bad picture. So Captain Freeman realizes it wasn't Mariner who said anything, it was really everybody else, and Mariner was actually talking about how great it is working on the Cerritos and with those people and her crewmates. And so she tries to contact Mariner at Starbase 80, where she learns that Mariner has resigned from Starfleet.
Yeah, and while that's going on, of course, because the Brekka was taken over by the Breen noticed their ship. There's a short battle starts, and then they get rescued by a new kind of ship, a Texas class ship, which is a fully automated ship without any crew.
Yeah, it's an AI ship.
An AI ship, yeah. It's a new line of ships that Admiral Buenamigo introduces.
Yeah.
And that leads, of course, into the season finale.
Well, the last thing we learn in this episode is Mariner has joined Aberdeen and the archaeologist.
Yeah, basically. And next, the last episode of the season is called "The Stars at Night." There is talk about basically scrapping all of the California class ships and just giving all of their duties to the Texas ships.
I mean, because obviously Admiral Buenamigo is showed how great the AI ships are through the Alito doing what it does. Apparently, they have like good, really like performance reviews, and so he is on the side of replacing the Cali class completely.
Yeah, yep. And to prevent this, Captain Freeman basically proposes a race between the Cerritos and the Alito, who could do the duties of the ships that ships are supposed to do better and faster. At first, it starts out in favor of the California class ship, but of course, the Texas class ship uh, gains the advantage pretty quickly, especially when Tandy asks to stop a mission to check for life signs on a certain planet. And then they kind of realize that, the Texas ship won't do those things because it doesn't have human intuition. So they can't be replaced. I think it's a very standard, actually, even standard, I'd say, original series episode. It reminds me a lot of the supercomputer episode.
The Ultimate Computer.
Yeah,
One of my favorite
exactly.
episodes. The original
Exactly.
series. It really did feel like a reprisal of that. There was nothing in this episode that was surprising to me.
Yeah. It basically goes by the numbers. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
the ships, the Texas class ships, can do everything that the humans can do. Well, not all humans, but you know what I mean. That the living people can do. It doesn't have the same kind of inquisitive mind and intuition that people have. It's only programmed, and of course, and then it turns out that the Texas class ships that were, Buen Amigo's original plan was always to replace the California class ships, and the Texas class ships are actually based on the designs that were stolen from Rutherford before his implant was inserted.
Right. So his sort of unauthorized engineering projects, he was building some type of engine, like an AI engine, and yeah, that technology was stolen, and
Yeah,
therefore Rutherford's memories basically had to be erased, so that he didn't
yeah,
even
not just stolen, but stolen by Admiral, but the person who became Admiral
exactly
Buen Amigo.
Mr. Admiral Goodfriend.
Yeah,
But what we realize at this point is, Rutherford in another season had
yeah,
already started recreating like AI.
yeah,
And you'll recall, the one that he did that went rogue was Badgie.
yeah,
So basically, the program that he created, or the code that he created, he calls it emotionally unstable AI.
yeah. And he warns Buenamigo not to let the ships go full AI, but of course Buenamigo doesn't listen, and the ships turn on him.
Yeah. Oh, and we also
Um,
learned that Buenamigo had set up the Breen, and this he really had engineered everything that happened in the previous episode to make the Cali class look bad.
exactly. Um, so of course the Texas class ship turn against Buenamigo and the Cerritos and go after them.
The whole station.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Mariner is, she has second thoughts about teaming up with the archaeologist. Aberdeen won't tell her who is financing her expeditions, and Mariner is very suspicious. But then it turns out he's just Picard. He's not like a nefarious plan or anything. Just Picard likes to collect old things. Um, but she realizes that she doesn't want to be an archaeologist. Even though it's freelance, even though she can do whatever she wants, that's not what she really wants. She wants to be in Starfleet.
It actually, the way they portray Mariner and Aberdeen in their job is sort of like Indiana Jones. They go in and steal an archaeological artifact and then take it off to a museum. At first, you see Mariner in the beginning of the episode looking like she's having the time of her life, bantering with the Ferengi as she makes off with this artifact. But then you see that she's having a good time, but she's also very, as you said, very suspicious about the funding of what they do. And it turns out that there's nothing illicit going on there. It's just Jean Luc Picard's pet organization.
Yeah, he just likes to collect
Yeah.
antiques. Yeah. But it kind of hammers home to her that she just doesn't want to be in anything else but Starfleet. She wants to return to Starfleet. So when she hears that the Cerritos is in trouble, she goes and helps them. And of course, she saves the day. They can get over the faulty AI. The Texas ship's plan scrapped. Everything is happy. Happy ending all around.
Yeah. Yes.
At the last few, of course, at the last 2 minutes, we get the setup for the next season, of course. Um, Mariner comes back to Starfleet, obviously, back to the Cerritos, obviously. She now she asks for ransom specifically to be her mentor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the other thing is Boimler had accidentally offended Shax, and you know how Boimler's been looking to be sponsored, sort of, or be friends with like a bridge crew member.
Yeah,
He eventually supports Shax when Shax, proposes to eject the warp core in part of the fight with the AI ships, and so at the end, Boimler gets his, let's say, bridge crew supporter finally.
yeah. And the in in the last season, we had a special episode that focused on ships that aren't distributors, the lower decks of Vulcans and Klingons and Pakleds. And right, those
Yeah.
Pakleds, right? Yeah. Get the continuation of this here when the Vulcan ensign Chalene comes on board the Cerritos.
Yep.
And it seems like she's going to be good friends with Tandy, or so Tandy hopes.
I think Tendy's going to be mentoring her in the science department.
Yeah, it seems like it. In the post-credit scene, we see an unknown alien species picking up Rutherford's old implant that still has Badgie's program on it. So that was the season. Like I said, I think it was better than the first season, but not as good as the second season. I I still liked it a lot. Like it was really fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. Out of curiosity, what was your least favorite episode? Because I think I know what your favorite one was. What was your
Um,
least favorite?
my least favorite episode, I have to say, I kind of I think it was the ninth episode, the first part of the finale.
Okay.
Just just because it was very very predictable, like really nothing out of the ordinary for me.
Yeah. I kind of lump episode 9 and 10 together. And
Mhm.
so episode 9 was really just a setup for episode 10.
Yeah, I think what really annoyed me about episode 9 is that the whole story of Mariner was they could have resolved it very easily if they just asked her, "What did you say to the reporter?" And then she would have just told them what she said to the reporter,
Right.
and everything would have been cleared up. Like the fact that no one even thought about asking her, "What exactly did you say to the reporter?" It's really dumb. I think it just feels very forced. It makes the plot feel forced.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and we forgot to mention another thing that happened in the last episode. Because, Jen didn't believe Mariner, they broke up. They seem to have broken up in the last
Yeah.
episode.
And that's another thing that bothered me about episode 9 was
Yeah.
her friends were a little more like, well, maybe you didn't, but maybe you did. But then even her girlfriend was like, how dare you? I know, like, you did it. The fact that everybody was so, in a sense, so certain that Mariner had said something.
I think our friends were like, maybe you didn't mean to, but you said something.
Right.
But everyone else were like, you did it on purpose.
Yeah. So when everybody you're friends with, your family, your partner,
Yeah.
they all come to that conclusion, I mean, clearly you're going to feel you have no support whatsoever. Nobody trusts you, so you're just going to leave. I mean, that was
Yeah.
really the only way to get Mariner probably to quit Starfleet.
Yeah.
Was to make her feel like her bonds were not real. But that annoyed me. So the whole like plot of episode 9 was filler, was basically leading us into episode 10. The part that annoyed me most about 10 was that Mariner having a change of heart was just too
Sudden.
quick.
Yeah.
There was no more drama.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, I get where you're coming from. I also, I do get there was a season long arc for her to slowly come around to like realizing that she wants to be in Starfleet, which I think is the point of it. But I think in the last episode it was kind of like she forgave the people who kind of
Yeah.
mistrusted her too quickly.
I just didn't see enough like of conversation about. She had a conversation with her mom, obviously,
Yeah,
and they're like, "Oh, I was wrong. You didn't really do it. I'm sorry." Clearly, you could see she had forgiven everybody and she wanted to come back, but it was just
yeah,
too. It just flipped too fast for me, I think.
yeah.
I
It
was
was
like,
too
why
clean.
make her leave at all? She was already to the point where did she really have to break away from Starfleet to know she wanted to be in Starfleet? That is what I was left with feeling confused about.
I think it was the. I think it was just the combination of it that she actively chose to be in Starfleet. She was already outside, and she
Yeah.
chose to come back.
Yeah.
That was the point. So, episode 10 is your least favorite?
That's a hard one. It's a hard one between 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Both because the plot with Mariner kind of just rubbed me the wrong way, the ending to that, but also all the other pieces of it with the conspiracy to, get rid of the Cali class was very generic.
Yeah, it was kind of a generic plot,
And then
really.
the way they proceeded with number 10, with how they tried to like have the race, and you knew the Cali class wasn't going to beat them, and then the AI was going to turn, it was all kind of predictable to me.
Yeah,
Although I very
yeah,
much enjoyed watching the ship go, I will not listen to you anymore, father.
yeah. That was funny. I think they're kind of slyly in the background setting up Rutherford's daddy issues. Like, why do these AIs always call the person father
I
and then
know.
turn against him? It's really weird.
I mean, it could be harking back to the original series episode where that AI thinks Kirk is its creator.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't
mean,
necessarily call him
obviously,
father, but,
yeah,
you know, who knows?
yeah. So yeah, I think it was a very disappointing season finale, really.
Yeah.
Um, but so, what is your favorite episode?
Hear all, trust nothing.
Yeah,
It
if we agree on that.
was just so fun. It was Deep Space Nine was already a really good Star Trek show, and just having some return characters, colorful characters, getting to see more about Tendi, why Tendi really left the Orions to join Starfleet, and the kind of background she comes from. Even her throwaway comment, like when Mesk, who's the or other Orion Starfleet officer, says something
Yeah,
like, "Oh, are you using your like aggressive female pheromones?" And she goes, "Not all of us have that." Just little extra tidbits that kind of play into the canon. Really, I really enjoyed. And to be
yeah.
honest, the fact that Mariner was kind of on the side wasn't so bad for me, because she gets a lot of screen time in the other episodes.
Also, I enjoyed the fact that her subplot was with Jen because we don't really see all that much of them in the
Well,
season.
right, we get told that they're girlfriends earlier
Yeah,
with the mine episode, and then but we then actually get to see them be girlfriends.
yeah. I think this is what I
But then
alluded
they
to
break
at
up.
the yeah. Well, this is what I alluded to at the beginning of this discussion when I said they
Yeah.
dropped the ball on a character. I think Mariner, the fact they basically gave her two storylines this season: one that she needs
Hmm.
to choose to be in Starfleet, and two, her relationship with Jen. And they could have connected them, and they really didn't.
Hmm.
Like, we kind of learned at the end that Jen was kind of fixated on Mariner being this rebel. And this could have really played into the whole, Mariner having to choose to be in Starfleet and stop being a rebel. But instead, those kind of plots stayed separated, and we didn't really see all that much of a relationship with Jen, and it felt kind of like a wasted opportunity.
Yeah. And the other thing
Yeah.
is, they brought up in that episode where they kind of told that they were actually dating was like Mariner's fear of commitment. I never thought that was fully realized either.
Yeah.
Even though she's supporting Jennifer and by going to visit with her and her friends and whatnot, I, for one, was like, okay, is that fear of commitment for relationships just going to be left dangling as a thread? Because, I get the fear of commitment to a career in Starfleet. That's like a whole,
Yeah.
plot and has been for several seasons. So I guess I wanted to see more on the relationship side, and we really only got like three kind of appearances.
Yeah. And in one of them, it wasn't even about Jen. It was like a
Yeah.
hallucination.
So it was a little disappointing because I wanted to see Mariner grow in a relationship with somebody, trusting somebody as a partner as well as trusting her friends and her
Yeah.
captain and her leaders or the superior officers in the show.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Maybe it's a season 4 thing. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't think Jen and Mariner are going to get back together. Yeah, who knows? Maybe she'll find another girlfriend or boyfriend.
Right. The other thing that I guess surprised me was when we ended with season 2, we had talked about that, who was going to be taking over leadership of the Cerritos. And we actually kind of were excited, I think, to see like who would take command of the Cerritos while Captain Freeman was in custody. Um, and that was all resolved so quickly in the first episode
Yeah,
that I went, okay, well, I guess we're not doing that.
yeah,
A missed opportunity. Maybe they could at least
oh,
had
yeah,
someone lead the ship for one episode.
yeah. I agree. It would have been fun to see Ransom being the captain for one episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I think we kind of summed it up. Overall, not as good as the last season, second season, but better than the first season.
So I was really pleased with Rutherford's, like, again, getting that backstory. I was really pleased with getting to see more of Tendi and just her hangups with Orion culture and what she's trying to get away from. How
Yeah.
did you feel about Boimler?
Like I said, I think they're starting to set up something with Bold Boimler. I like Boimler's character much more than I did in season one. He's not as annoying as he was then.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, again, I think they're setting up something with him, but he really took a backseat this season.
He did. I feel like I like to think maybe the writers heard the response on Boimler's character and have been trying to self correct subtly
Yeah,
over the last two seasons. So
I think he's just growing up, which I
yeah.
appreciate.
So, but it's not uncommon to have a more sort of a brown noser but play it safe kind of officer on the ship. I mean, that's pretty common. So, but to have him actually maybe, like you said, grow beyond that, find a good middle ground, and also grow in his leadership capacity. I mean, obviously in season 2 we had several instances of him showing that he does have leadership qualities. So maybe this bold Boimler will bring more of that good leadership quality to the forefront. As long as he
Yeah,
doesn't go over, like you said, in moderation. Kind of funny, even in the Starfleet movie episode, um, when Boimler kind of loses his cool and just doing like given the heroic speech with the bad guy, he just like jumps on him and starts beating him up. Like, and she's like, "Well, okay, let's go with the Kirk thing." And I was like, "Yeah, you
yeah,
know what? Boimler has kind of been having his Kirk moments when he loses
yeah.
his cool. He does have a temper, I will say that."
He does. Yeah, he does. Um, I also think they're probably setting up something with his clone, with William.
I mean, they should. We were totally expecting more clone this season, I think. I know I was. It was on my list of bad guys. Bad guys that might come back in season 3, and I was actually hoping for more of William the clone and what he was up to. But I guess they had to put him aside
Yeah,
for,
Mariner's story.
Mariner's story. So you're right. Maybe season 4 is Boimler's time to shine. He's gonna
Yeah, yeah,
battle his spy clone, Section 31 spy clone.
yeah,
People go around and be like, "Hey, I've seen that guy before. He was making a deal with so and so in the black market of he was trading deals with a Ferengi." And you're like, "Hey, no, he's a Starfleet officer. What are you talking about?"
yeah,
Yeah. There's a lot you could do with literally a clone of you walking around doing shady stuff.
yeah. That's true. Anything more that you want to talk about?
I'm just really happy Shax is back. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I know it was a. I'm just really
Oh,
glad
yeah.
they revived him from the.
Honestly, I think another complaint, now that you remind me, another complaint I had about the season is not enough Dr. Tiana. I think she
Yeah.
should get more screen time.
Obviously, we had Captain Freeman. Ransom got a little bit of a backseat.
But he had these scenes. Director had these scenes with Mariner. He had his moments with
Yeah.
her.
I don't know. I do love the senior officers of the ship, and I will take anything they will show us of them. So they have gotten like some episodes where they've gotten more of a screen time in the past.
Yeah.
I kind of missed that this season.
Like I said, I think Tiana was really shafted in this season. Like we barely got anything over at all. We got Captain Freeman, as you said, and Ransom with Mariner. We got Chax, and we even got this like the bird guy, the counselor.
Yeah, we even got the chief engineer in that whole episode in the spa.
Yeah,
Him and
but
his
we didn't get.
department got time to shine. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but we didn't get Tiana, which is sad. I
Well,
like her. She's fun.
we pretty much only got Tiana in like a sexual capacity.
Yeah,
At the last episode where she was trying to get everybody in the tip top shape, she had, if you'll notice, she had like a bondage whip in her hand when she was trying to get
yeah,
her medical staff to get cracking so they could win this race with the Alito.
yeah,
I was like, okay, all right, so we get it. She's kinky
yeah,
and she has a high sex drive. Okay, that's fine. What else?
yeah. What else? I want to see hard as Tiana from the previous seasons. She was fun.
Yeah, that therapist dude. So as far as bad guys this season, really the only one was, Admiral Buenamigo, which was
Yeah,
in the last two episodes.
and Peanut Hamper.
And Peanut Hamper, okay, but let's be honest. Peanut Hamper's story only crossed paths with when she like sent out that distress call and finally got Starfleet to come over to the planet. I mean, I know she was planning to like set up this whole scenario where she got back into Starfleet through forgiveness by whatever, but Starfleet's not that stupid. Clearly. She's definitely going evil.
Yeah.
Like you
Well,
said, it's her narcissism.
Yeah, we literally see her in the last episode colluding with the Jeffrey
Yeah.
Combs computer supercomputer.
It's narcissism and a distinct lack of compassion.
Yeah.
Ooh, you organic life forms are so stupid.
Yeah. Her episode had a very kind of, very by the numbers uh, redemption story, but like her running commentary was really what did it for me. It was so fun.
Yeah, even the running commentary when she was getting frisky with the chief's son,
Yeah.
which was just hilarious.
Yeah.
There's always some good humor in Lower Decks. I'll give them
Yeah.
that. They certainly don't put aside the comedy even in the serious situations.
That's true.
So, did we get any other distinct like cameos? The Deep Space Nine episode and like a look at Tuvok in the first.
In the last episode, we got that ship captain, the other ship captain, that she appeared in previous season.
Oh yeah,
I
the
forgot it.
Mariner's friend.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I just wonder who they'll continue to do cameos with, because like we got a Tom Paris episode in season
Yeah.
2.
Can we get an Enterprise cameo? Maybe Dr. Flux will come back? Who knows? I mean, he will be very, very old, but we don't know how long the Nobulans live. He could be there.
That's so true. Was there any canon material or any canon that was like retconned?
I don't think retcon. Like I said, they kind of touched upon this one episode from the Next Generation that I really hate, and they kind of followed it through. Aside from that, not that I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Overall, it was a good watch.
yeah,
Actually, I think the first time I watched this season, I binge watched it. It was good enough to just let it keep playing. It was so entertaining.
yeah. I watched it as it aired, so I didn't get this experience, but I looked forward to it every week.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So that's all we have to say about Lower Decks season 3.
Yeah. To summarize, season 4 expectations are William the Clone.
William the Clone, Peter Tamper, and Jeffrey Combs returning. Uh, Badgie returning.
Oh, Badgie returning. Yeah, the bad guy.
Yeah. Tilly, Tilly the Vulcan ensign with the crew.
Yep, with the lower deckers and the ensigns. And possibly Mariner maybe moving up a rank.
I think they can all move up a rank. I think Teddy is also bound to move up a rank,
Yeah.
and they can see Boimler and Rutherford also moving up.
Yeah, so maybe they all move up a rank and
I mean, would it still be lower decks? They're no longer lower deckers.
they're just lieutenants. Uh
Interesting.
Maybe they'll be training some ensigns.
Maybe.
So it could still be lower decks, but
I mean, they still won't be like, command team, but
Right. So like you said, that's all we had for Lower Decks season 3 review. Thank everybody for listening, and this kind of closes out our podcast for 2022, but we will be returning in 2023 with more fun podcasts. So stay tuned.
yeah. Goodbye, everybody.